there are certain organizations that sometimes just seem to flat out not get it. Like, they just can't help themselves from doing stupid and idiotic things. And one of those organizations that I think definitely fits into that category, especially in recent years, has to be the football team in D.C., the Washington Redskins. Ever since Daniel Snyder bought the team, he has tried to imagine himself as a new version, kind of like a Jerry Jones, has seemed to want to pattern himself after Jerry Jones and pretty much all the bad traits and characteristics. The Redskins have pretty much sucked for the most part during Daniel Snyder's tenure as an owner. There's no way around it. There's no way to put that nicely. It's just the truth. Lots of stupid, bad, dumb dick contracts given to players that are way over the hill just because they're names. Lots of upheaval in terms of head coaches and running through all these big names and so on and so forth. This is more ridiculous, more stupidity. Well, and I look at the Redskins now, and to me, I see one of the most dysfunctional and out of whack and out of touch organizations that there is in the National Football League. And what I'm trying to figure out here with the Washington Redskins' 2014 season is, what the fuck are they doing? And specifically, what the fuck are they doing when it comes to RG3? Now, look, I understand what the current narrative is in the sports media and in NFL circles about RG3, is that this guy hasn't progressed, he has regressed, he has questionable work ethic, people think that he's a poor leader, they question his dedication to his craft, to the game of football, and talking about the fact that maybe he's not the long-term answer for Washington, that he might be out the door as soon as the end of this season. And I'm sitting there and I'm hearing all this stuff and I'm seeing all this stuff and I'm like, there's some validity to some of this. I do question RG3's work ethic a little bit. I do question his leadership skills. When he's sitting there and talking about the play of his team, and he's talking about the fact that when Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning play well, it's because the other guys play well, and he's basically not taking responsibility for his own poor play, that's incredibly concerning to me. Because the one thing that a quarterback has to be above all else is an effective leader. He has to be a leader of men. And that's why I've been so harsh on Jay Cutler and the Chicago Bears over these past several years, is because Cutler's not a good leader of men. You can talk about physical talents all you want, but you also look at the inconsistency up here and the inconsistency in terms of his heart and desire at times, and you look at his inability to effectively lead men. And it's reflected in the play of the team. It's reflected in the organization as a whole. And in the Redskins' case, that might be somewhat true. But you also got to look at RG3 from this standpoint. While it hasn't worked out all that well, while it seems to be heading downhill in a big hurry, what else were you really going to expect? The Washington Redskins gave up a huge bounty in terms of draft picks in order to bring in an RG3. With the philosophy, the thought process was that he was going to be the guy. He was going to be the franchise saver. He was going to be that franchise quarterback that the Redskins, frankly, haven't had for a long, long time. So to move up 4 spots in the draft to get him in 2012 for number 6 to number 2, you gave up that first-round pick. I believe it was a second-round pick in that year's draft. And then you gave up first-round picks in 2013 and 2014 in order to get this guy. Once you do that, you're basically putting a lot of burden and a lot of expectations on this guy's shoulders, and you're not necessarily in a position to give him a whole lot of help. Because premium picks that you would have, you don't have anymore. Impact players that you could surround RG3 with, you have to find other routes and avenues in order to get them. And when I look at RG3 here in the Washington Redskins, I say, for all of the talk and all of what the current narrative is, has he really been that bad? And has he been bad enough for long enough, and have you had enough time to really be able to say that this is a sunken cost, and the quicker you move on as an organization, the better off all parties involved will be? I mean, I just don't see the logic here from the Washington Redskins organization, especially what they're doing in 2014. Yeah, RG3 has a trouble with injuries. He has trouble with staying healthy. I don't dispute that. And that's a knock on him. That was a knock and a concern I had on him coming out of Baylor. I thought he was too frail, his style of play. A lot of things were going to combine to always having a question about whether or not he'd actually be able to start a full season. But this is an RG3 that in 2012, he played very well. 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 9-6 record as a starter. The Redskins won their last 7 games of that season. They made the playoffs. It's not like RG3's always been boo-boo bad. And he started the majority of the games the following season in 2013, coming off of that knee injury. Probably started too soon. I don't think he ever really got a rhythm. I don't think he was ever really fully prepared. But he was also dealing with Mike Shanahan, who was on his way out and was a bit of a freaking disaster at the end in Washington. Now we get a new head coach in Jay Gruden, and RG3 in the Jacksonville game dislocates his ankle. He's out several weeks. So fans and people in the Redskins organization are so excited to see what Kirk Cousins can finally do. We finally found out what Kirk Cousins can do. So now RG3 comes back. You give him a couple of games basically, but then you're going to freaking Colt McCoy. And this reeks of desperation from a coaching staff that is afraid that they're going to be one and done, that they're going to get fired at the end of the year. And usually, I'm not the type of individual that likes to say that you should fire a coach after a year. I think that's usually ridiculous. It really has to take a special set of circumstances for me to justify or defend that. But maybe in this case, it's called for. Maybe in this case, it would be justified. Because, look, we're talking about a Redskins team that finished 3-13 last year. You can blame that on a quarterback all you want. You can crap on a quarterback all you want. And RG3 definitely deserves some of that blame. But again, the team went 3-13. They went 3-13 for a reason. Part of the reason they went 3-13 is that they just weren't that good of a football team. And now again in 2014, you've had Cousins start several games. You've had McCoy start a couple of games. RG3, mind you, has started a total of 5 games. And the Washington Redskins are 3-9. And with only 5 starts in this season and a total of 33 starts over the first 2+ years, almost 3 years of his career, apparently the Washington Redskins have made a decision that RG3 is no longer the best option for them, and he's no longer the best guy for the job in D.C. And I just think this is completely and totally ridiculous. Part of the reason you would think that Daniel Snyder and Bruce Allen brought in a Jay Gruden was because they thought RG3 could fit his system, because they thought he could get more out of RG3. Why would you bring in a guy to do just that when he does the exact opposite, seems to get even less out of RG3, and as a result is now benching him in favor of a guy in Colt McCoy who was backing up Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco just a year ago? I mean, this is how ridiculous it's gotten for the Washington Redskins. They now legitimately believe that Colt McCoy gives them the best chance to win football games. If you're the Redskins, you're already out of the mix. You're already out of the playoff race. Already. You've been out of it for several weeks, frankly. You are 3-9. You figured out that Cousins isn't going to be a long-term answer for you. You most certainly know that Colt McCoy isn't going to be a long-term answer for you. You may believe that RG3 is not going to be the long-term answer for you, but at this point in time, what do you really lose from starting RG3 more? What do you really lose starting RG3 the last 4 games of 2014? You lose the last 4 games of the season? Okay, then you get a better draft position. Maybe he plays well those last 4 games and he gets a rhythm and he builds some positive momentum for 2015. Maybe he saves the head coach's job because he plays better. Maybe you get some growth out of him. Or maybe you find out for sure beyond a shadow of a doubt, like I don't think you have yet, even though you might believe that you have, by starting in the last 4 games that he's not the answer and that you do need to move on as an organization once the season is over. There is nothing but negatives to me that come with not playing RG3 the rest of the 2014 season for the Washington Redskins. And there's nothing but positives, no matter how you want to look at it, for the Washington Redskins, if they do play RG3 the rest of 2014. I just cannot believe that this organization and the coaching staff and the people involved have determined that Colt McCoy is the best option for them, and starting Colt McCoy makes the most sense for the organization, both short-term and especially the long-term. No, starting RG3 is the best thing for the organization, short-term and especially long-term. One way or another. It doesn't matter what perspective you look at it. You want to find out that RG3 is not the guy? Start him the last 4 games. You want to lose those last 4 games to get a better draft position to maybe where you could take a new quarterback and Winston or Mariota in the next draft? Start RG3 the last 4 games. You want to see one last time maybe if RG3 can actually be the guy? Start him the last 4 games. It's just one of these do it here, do it there, just fucking do it type of things, and it's ridiculous that the Redskins organization wouldn't do that. With basically a total of 2 seasons worth of NFL starts, the Redskins have already determined that the guy that they gave up basically 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick to move up 4 spots in the draft to get is no longer the answer. I mean, what the fuck is going on here? You wonder sometimes why certain teams can't stop themselves from being their own worst enemies, and you wonder why certain teams just never seem to get it. Well, you see organizations like the Washington Redskins, and you see bullshit like how they have handled the whole RG3 situation, and you understand it perfectly crystal clear why a team like the Redskins continues to be frankly irrelevant other than for debates about their team's name. This is a completely irrelevant organization, and because of dumb dick decisions like this, they will continue to be so for many years to come.